All right. So welcome everybody to part one of Know Your Spine for Better Dancing. It will be part of a four-part series that is doing sort of just honestly kind of a surface look at doing spine, then pelvis, then knees, and then finally shoulders. Feet will be coming later, but I've been studying feet for a long time. So I'm actually going to do my plan at the moment is to do a 60-day challenge that you and students in particular could do through the summer, where there's just like a little drop of information every day rather than this big sort of overwhelming thing. So stay tuned for that. I will make sure all of you here on this call know about it should you be interested. So what we're doing today is a kind of like just the tip of the iceberg, as with everything, right? Just that little first intro, in this case to spine. And rather than doing a deep dive in spine for many weeks, then I want to do sort of a quick overview of pelvis and knees and shoulders, and then, go back and do a level 2 on all of them, and then go back and do a level 3 on all of them. So you just sort of keep doing the layers and layers, because of course, anything that you learn in your spine is going to affect everything else. And therefore you might go, oh, there's something I need to learn about my knees in relationship to what I just learned about my spine. Yeah. And then we can keep going deeper. So today, my plan is to have you understand a little bit more about basic design and function, and of course, the application to that for dance teachers in the dance studio. I have done one recently that's just sort of for, the lay people who just want a happy, healthier spine. But I know that if I give you that information, first of all, you are hopefully a little bit beyond just, wow, my spine flexes and extends and rotates, that you're a little bit beyond that. And that what you're really here for is to go, okay, how can I make sure that I'm having a healthy spine so I can have decades of a healthy career? And as what I'm telling my students, not only going to have them have great full potential in their dancing, but longevity. I think that's becoming a thing that's a lot more a common thing to look at these days. Is it's not okay to have your students perform well at a cost, right? And that cost that's going to cost them, whether it be 6 months from now or even 20 years from now. I think a lot of teachers are realizing that you can reach a high level of dance and not be crippled at 25 or even 45 because of that. And as much as this is a Franklin method workshop, and a lot of the information from Eric Franklin that I've done in the last year is part of this, but also about 20 years ago, I met a gentleman by the name of Bill Evans, who some of you may or may not have heard of. He's quite a modern icon down in the US there. And he does modern dance really based on Laban and Bartenieff. So the developmental movement patterns and Laban and all that stuff. And it was life-changing for me back then, as having come primarily from a ballet only background, being RAD registered for decades or whatever it is now. And meeting him, I met him when he was 60 and I was 30. And watching him dance and do concerts like as part of the intensives, I was like, wow, he's such an inspiration. He's 60, and then keep going year after year. And I've followed him around like a puppy practically for the last 20 years. As a matter of fact, he's been doing the Franklin method training with me. He's now 80 and he's still learning it. And I still watched him dance, not last summer because of COVID, but the year before when we were still there in person down in Washington. He still danced in the concert. He still did solos in the concert. And I go, okay, I just gave myself goosebumps. So I'm like, that's who I want to follow. Somebody who is dancing for their entire life. So he's been a great influence as well. And I would love to tell you there's a great resource for him. But at the moment, he's actually working on a book. So I can always let you know when that comes out. But to check into the developmental patterns and the Laban and all that, it's really about healthy, full-bodied movement, three-dimensional movement. And what I know from years in ballet and then adding this Bartenieff Laban world is that a lot of what we do is not as three-dimensional as we think it might be. In fact, I remember the day in the workshop, in this 2-week workshop in the summer, when it's like my two-dimensional sort of en croix mold broke. Because we do things on the diagonals and we're rotating, doing all this extra stuff. And I got a little irritated for about 2 days. I had to tell my friends, just leave me alone, because my little protective shell of my two-dimensional world has broken. And now I've entered the three-dimensional world. It is very dynamic, and it made me feel a little off balance, actually, almost even emotionally for a little bit. And that's actually what the spine is designed for, as we'll see by the end of all this, is that we're designed to live in a three-dimensional world, because it is three-dimensional. So even me doing gestures like this, yeah, I could just twist, but chances are I rotated and extended. And a lot of that we don't tend to allow in the ballet world. And I'm going to suggest to you that there's probably ways to include that into your classes. And you will be spending a whole lot less time correcting or fixing posture when the three-dimensional ability of the spine has been awoken, because it's brilliantly and intelligently designed to deal with that. And so I have to give a shout out, of course, to Bartinief and Laban and Bill Evans, and then meeting Eric Franklin. I've been looking at his books for a long time, but to be able to sign up and actually work with him has been amazing, and all of his faculty. So with all that said, what else would you need to know about me? Well, I'm a reformed tailbone strangler. Back from a misunderstanding turnout, and squeezing that butt together and basically twisting off all the energy from my tailbone. Releasing that has been amazing for releasing the rest of my spine. Also had a lot of jaw tension, which is probably even related to the fact I'm still wearing glasses, and letting that go has been amazing. And kind of like that, you do something for the top and the bottom, and then, oh, the middle starts to feel better. And I don't feel like I was cursed with a bad spine anymore. I'm like, oh no, actually, I probably got the same as everybody, and it's perfectly capable of doing anything I wanted to do. Just had to get rid of a few habits that had crept in unknowingly, right? Best of intentions. So my goal for today is to get you to understand some basic stuff about the spine that perhaps you didn't know. And I can only speak for myself, really, but I kind of go, I went through all this training for years, did a lot of anatomy, and yet still, even just in the last year, I've learned stuff where I go, how come I didn't know that? And so I don't know what you know. I don't wish to make assumptions in a, snooty way, but I am still going to assume that maybe some of the things I didn't know, you didn't know either, and you can have some mind-blowing moments. And if they're not mind-blowing moments, maybe they're just great confirmations, and you can pat yourself on the back that you've been doing that all along. We'll see, right? What else do you need to know? Oh yeah, just so again today, mostly about the design and about the curves, how that plays out in class. The part 2 will get in more to increasing the movement potential, understanding the facet joints, discs, and ligaments. Part 3, we would look at the atlas and axis, spotting heads and all the head movements, and a pomot. That's the plan for the moment. Okay, just so you know. So if you go, how come we didn't work on increasing our extension yet? I'd say because we need to enliven our curves first. And you probably even need a chunk of time with that before you layer in the next piece. Okay. Now, part of the Franklin method, and I think even just basic teaching method, is to really understand where you are now. And then when you make some sort of intervention, whether it be a movement, a touch, or a new image, then you check in and you compare to see how it was different. And if it feels like it was a positive difference, then you celebrate and you keep it. So part of what I want to do to start with is just ask you where you're at now. Now you can choose to, just admitting here. You can choose to make it a verbal thing. You can put it in the chat. You can just say it in your head, whatever you like. Just the idea of where are you now? And I would also say this is us looking at also where our students are now. So like, what are your thoughts about your spine right now? If anybody wants to unmute, just go ahead and I'll kind of say your name. We're still all on one screen for me. So if anybody wants to share, where did you find? Okay, Katie, go ahead.
My spine's very stiff. I had an injury about 25 years ago. My L4-5 disc gave me trouble. It's good for now, which is great, but I do have a bit of a kyphosis here in my neck that I really need to open up.
Awesome. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. I wouldn't say I didn't know all that I'm about to share with you, but about 20 years ago, working with a local chiropractor where I worked with him a lot, wound up sending probably like 100 of my students to him. And after, I don't know, about a year maybe of working with me, my students, he goes, just so you know, you and all of your students have a very pronounced C7. I'm like, oh? And he goes, yes, there's something about what you're doing that is making the C7 vertebrae want to pop out. And I'm like, oh. And basically at that point, he's just said, you're over flattening the curves. And that my C7 is pulling back, trying to create more curve again. It's desperate, trying to do it for me. And that was I mean, I'm blessed to have had that eye-opening, wake up call of going, hey, it's not just you. Your 15-year-old students are having the same thing. So we can, hopefully what we're doing today can be some stuff that will help
Yeah,
promote positive
I've
change.
noticed my tail, all sorts of things. Travis and I are busy doing the RAD Masters, and we're doing the somatics branch of it at the moment. So I'm discovering all sorts of things, and my talus has definitely been tucked under a lot. So it's obviously having a knock-on effect.
Right. You cannot, yes, you can't affect one part without affecting the whole, right? We are a connected closed system, of course. Yeah, anybody else want to share? So welcome, Jobina. We're just doing a little quick share on how we feel about our spine. Okay, Tanya's saying her spine's also quite stiff. Dislocation, fracture, lower thoracic, upper lumbar. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So hard time. Connecting. Hard time connecting to it. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here now, Jobina. Yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time connecting to my spine.
Oh, to your spine. Oh, not the computer. Oh, got it.
Okay. Sorry, I was late too. Sorry, I was late. I just had something else running over. So I'm glad to be here right now. I find from ballet, from being so upright, I think that my spine is so like when I get stiff, I have a hard time finding something, and so it's kind of like non-existent. But I feel it's coming from stiffness, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Because I'm just upright.
It's not giving you information back.
Yeah.
The thing that often happens, right? As soon as we get a pain, our body wants to protect us from that. Not just the protection as in stiffness, it goes, please don't move that while we're healing, but kind of a mental and emotional block of going, you don't need to feel this. We don't want to keep feeling it. And I think it's actually called attenuation. Like if I were to start tapping your shoulder, it's not quite the same when you do it yourself, but if I was to be tapping your shoulder, you'd be really irritated with me. But if I kept doing it, you would eventually tune it out. You'd have to. Like the coping of the nervous system is going, we don't need to feel that anymore. So oftentimes when we have a chronic pain, irritant, what have you, we stop feeling it over time. And as a matter of fact, like that's a good coping mechanism. But the problem is that we disconnect to the area. And it might mean that the movement patterns or whatever we did to get that chronic pain, we're not unwinding it at all because now we're just not noticing it. It's a coping mechanism. It's almost like, your nose running. It's like a good idea. The body goes, can we get that out? But then it just goes overboard and it doesn't end up with help. So part of bringing back your spine actually is just checking in and loving it again. Okay. So if you were to give some more, anybody else want to share anything about spine? Now's your big moment, just how you feel about it. So we've got some stiffs, we've had injuries. Yeah, go ahead, Erna. Yeah.
I think upper body, especially having been home all the time, sitting on all these uncomfortable chairs, not moving like we normally move, because we've been out of the studios for so long now. And I just find my upper back really, really gets stiff.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Well, make sure you show up for shoulders as well, because you're going to really enjoy that. But of course, part of the spine would be, getting into the spine and letting that feel appropriate is being, huge. It's huge.
Yeah, and I was actually told that I've got no curve in my upper spine left. It's all from straightening it all your life.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe today's the day you're going to bring back that curve. Yeah. And anybody else want to share? Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just, well, as far as my own spine's concerned, I'm 62 now, but I'm still teaching. It's always been not very flexible, but I've never been really very worried about that because I've not worked as a professional dancer. I haven't got the general physique to do so. I'm more a teacher who also teaches people who haven't got perfect physiques. But at the moment, I'm working with 3 girls who have just done their advanced 1. They're lovely girls. 2 of them have got very flexible spines, and the other girl is more or less like me. She has to work on her flexibility. And one of the things I'm hoping we might be able to address, or probably will pop up, is when there's so much flexibility, and kids these days are seeing so many things on Instagram where flexibility is absolutely taken completely out of proportion. At least for what you were saying, if we want to get to a ripe old age and still be dancing, then they're not really looking after their spines. So just thinking that probably some of the things you're going to be saying is going to help me with those girls for them to not over exaggerate that flexibility, so I can help them know even more how to engage all the core and all the abdominal muscles and not let their pelvis go back, so that that makes them feel that they're doing a bigger cambray than they're doing at the moment. You know, I don't know whether I'm explaining myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we will get there partially today and probably more in another one as well. Yeah. Where we can
Fantastic.
say, let's just look at Arabesque, or let's look at this. I think the biggest thing that I got, you know, I'm like you, Gail, where I go, you know, I knew I was meant to be a teacher first. My shins are too short, blah, blah, blah. I was meant to maybe be a modern dancer, but not a ballet dancer. Okay, fine. But ballet was my love. So that's where I went anyway. And I always had that sort of, my spine's just not as flexible as her spine, you know. And what I found with this work is the more I get into understanding the design, like kind of just I keep using the word brilliant. Sorry if that's overused, but where you just go, I really? Somebody's whatever, human nature, mother nature, organized it like that. My gosh, that is amazing. And when I I was first kind of going like, okay, well, I've got my spine here, you know, ta-da, and be looking at it and going, that's just like, how did that get figured out? I can't imagine a more amazing, perfect design. It's not that vulnerable. Everybody thinks it's so darn vulnerable, and then we protect it and it gets stiff even from that. And then when I transferred to go, the spine isn't amazing and brilliant as this outside entity that everybody else has one of them. It's like, no, actually, I have one of them too. And I think when it comes to the teenagers, let's say, when you really respect something, you won't exploit it either. And I think that might be a huge thing, is if you really look at what the spine was designed to do and do for a lifetime, that respect of it might have you just having a slightly different approach. Because let's be honest, a 15-year-old is not thinking of their long-term health. They're just not. And we could say it every day, all day, and it still won't really sink in. So we need to have a different approach, which would be about not just even respecting the body, because again, that's kind of that long-term health approach that they don't go for, but to say, well, how about you explore your spine for all the amazing things that it's designed to do? And make that a positive instead of you're exploiting it in a negative sense. Like, how can we make it a positive? And then they're going to be drawn to maybe some new aspects that balance all that out. So that's the hope for a bit today. Okay, so because we're here to make some change and notice, and we had some stiffness mentioned from some people, let's just get up and wiggle around for just a few moments, however you want. So that's all the space you need. You're not copying me. You can say, oh, I'm going to do some flexion, extension, rotation, whatever. Just wiggle around, unless you're driving, right, Tavris? But so I'm just going to move around and just notice one thing about how you're doing it. And that is, what's your self-talk? So as I'm moving around, what am I saying to myself while I'm doing it? What words come to mind? So am I saying positive things to myself, or am I saying more, you know, quote unquote, negative things to myself? Am I going, oh, there's that spot. Oh, that's stiff. Oh my gosh, my upper back today. Oh, I really should be stretching. You know, are you doing all those negative talk? And let's do that on purpose. Let's all get into the negative. So negative words, like maybe it's sticky, it's soft, something that makes it so that it's hard for you to want to move with joy and ease, right? Just like, oh. And I think dancers, we often use our preliminary movements and our warm-up to check in with how we are today, which can be good, but often it's checking in to go, oh yeah, that spot's still stiff. And we're reinvesting and putting in and planting, yeah, that spot's still bad. Notice if you're doing that, if you go, oh yeah, that's where I'm always stiff. Oh, well, oh, maybe today's a bit better. Oh, no, today's a bit worse. Oh yeah. Okay. I think that's a common thing. It's like we check in to go, how close to perfect are we today? And I think our students often do that too, because there's such a goal of the perfection. But now just see, how did that feel? Does that have you motivated to want to really explore with compassion, respect, and excitement how your spine can move? Or are you now just maybe a little bit protective and a little bit like, judgmental? There's not a motivation there. And if we go back to when Jovina said about being connected, are we likely to feel connected to something that has negative connotations or labels? I don't think it's human nature to want to connect to something negative. We want to, like, you know, as if the stove was hot, we want to move away from something that's not positive. So what's it like now? I'm going to feed you a few words. And if you want to unmute and add anything, please feel like you're throwing, you know, the veggies into the stew or something. You're going to say, okay, oh, I have a juicy spine. Oh, my spine feels amazing today. Whoa, I'm like able to slither like a snake. I could actually move quite sensually if I wanted to. Oh, that feels so good. Oh, every stretch I do. Oh, and you're busy making positive sounds. I like all the ones that begin with S somehow. The slinky and the slippery, and like I've soaped it all up. And so maybe even slimy for the right student. They'd like that. They're like, oh, it's slimy. And it's all likes to move. And after you do a few more of that, any positive words you want to share, or you're just your own self-talk? How do you feel when you're done that? Now you might kind of go, well, now my spine's with me. I'm happy about it. And I'm gonna discover how it plays out in all that I'm doing. So even just our self-talk is huge. And so you can go ahead and sit down again for a sec. And so having been a teacher for decades, like you all out there, maybe not decades for all of you, but for a while, we spend, I'm sure, we know that we're here to encourage our students. You can do it, all those sorts of positive attitudes. But I wonder how often we make a comment about how great your body part is feeling. Oftentimes we might make a comment that it's looking great, but wouldn't it be amazing if we were helping our students to ingrain into them the idea that my spine felt great doing that. So maybe we did just a forward port de bras, and as you do it, you're not talking about the stretch, you're not talking about the how to do it like the roll up or something, but you're going, oh, and feel it feeling so slippery and slimy as you roll through each part. And then they go, oh, I'm supposed to feel joy when I'm moving my spine? Yeah, you are. And when we feel joy, as soon as we label something more happy and joyous, it's almost like let's think of it like the body parts can get hurt feelings. If you go around calling them negative things, they're like, well, fine. If you don't want to be my friend, I don't want to be your friend type of attitude. And so if I start calling my spine names or label it in an unhealthy way, it's not even going to want to cooperate. So even just the mental shift of giving a positive label to a movement, positive label not by how it looks, but by how it feels. Or you're implanting an image. I saw there like a willow. Yeah, I love that idea. Willow trees are actually my favorite trees of all. If I ever get my dream property, it'll have a big willow tree on it with a swing, you know, and all that stuff, right? And just that idea of like, I'm strong and supple. There's some more S words, a strong and supple spine. And if I can have both those ideas at the same time, so every time I do a port de bras, oh, I'm feeling strong and supple. Oh, I probably am. And I don't think it's denial that you labeled it something that it wasn't. I think it actually drives you toward that experience more. So that's number one, is let's just make sure that our mindset is positive. And again, this is stuff that's being talked about a lot. And I'm in no way assuming that you're out there chastising your students and whatnot. But I think sometimes we look at a step overall that you did that really well, or you're working hard with great focus today, and that there's positive affirmations from there. But I'm going to encourage you and suggest to you that you make positive feeling words, motivational words, specifically about a body part. So when we talk about knees, we could be doing our plies saying happy knees while we do it. And that's going to feel different than just talking about the strictness of some alignment or something. Okay, so that's number one, is just like, let's, get our positive labels on. Okay, and that can free up a whole lot of your spine right there. And of course, then the follow-up to that you could use in class as well as for yourself is just even a goal statement. How do you want your spine to feel? So for me, mine would be like strong and supple, supportive. I'd probably use the word brilliant again. Favorite word for spine. And the one that I like the most is resilient. And ironically, you know, all this COVID stuff has really highlighted some really key sort of personal development principles, because mental health and all that and stress has become something that's much more easily talked about, I think, than even a year and a bit ago. So I actually have here, it's not that fancy, but just me starting this idea of like, what do I do? I was doing some coaching thing, you know, and it's like, okay, I help people to be authentically embodied. And when I think of the spine and helping dance teachers, but even lay people, I go, the spine to me is about resiliency. And if I have a resilient spine, what does that look like and how does that play out in my life? My pelvis could be about being stable, knees about being adaptable, and so on. But my spine is about being resilient. Okay, that it always knows how to come back to center and be healthy there. So that's something right there. What would your goal statement be for your spine? And if anybody wants to share, go ahead and do that. You can put in the chat or you can unmute. Adaptable. Yeah, that's a great one. Jobina. Adaptable to everything. And we're going to come to this later in the class when I talk about, you know, applications in the studio. We are expecting our system to be resilient and adaptable without living anymore in a typical world that we were designed for. Our anatomy was not designed to sit in chairs. Okay. And the biggest one actually is our anatomy was not designed to be on flat surfaces all the time. We were meant to be walking over all these lumpy things all the time and constantly being able to keep our eyes on the horizon and level. So every time I walk, I wouldn't be going like some little bobblehead. My upper neck, my atlas axis there is amazingly able to, no matter what I'm doing, it's able to keep itself level because I'm designed to be adapting to the terrain below me. Okay, and I think that's a huge piece, and I have some fun ideas on how to bring that back into your dance classes. Not just for the little guys, you know, going over some obstacle course, but a little bit more than that. Okay, so anybody else want to share like a goal statement or a goal feeling? And then we're gonna move on to some parts of the anatomy. Oh, I see another chat there. Oh, that was just, yeah, that was Rubina saying adaptable. I saw it so quick. Anybody else want to say how they want their spine to feel? Good. I just want to make feel good. Okay, freedom and fluidity. Yes, that would be great. Fluidity is a wonderful one because of the fact that we are so much water-based as humans and in the tissues and everything like that. And most people are really connected to anything that's a water image. So fluid is great. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Your statements are for you. And let's see if by the end of class you go, I'm a little closer to that goal statement.